Hello, everybody. My name is Larry Filler. I am Senior Vice President and Practice Leader for the Financial Service Practice and Loyalty Practice. And excited to have you all here today, but most excitedly to have Stephen Shu, Marketing Manager of Property and Casualty Insurance at the CAA Club Group. Stephen has over 13 years of experience. He is a seasoned marketing leader with a talent for developing and executing marketing strategies that drive customer engagement and revenue growth. During his last 8 years, while he's been at CAA, he's managed the digital strategy team, has been directly responsible for various business lines, including membership, automotive, and CAA's advocacy work. Currently, Steve manages a team of marketers responsible for the direct channel of CAA Insurance. CAA Insurance has achieved tremendous growth over the last few years and is now one of the top insurance providers in Ontario. Part of their success has been driven by leveraging advanced analytics and predictive models to profitably grow their policyholder base. In today's presentation, Stephen, you will learn how they achieve their success, including information on their long-term modeling and analytics strategy. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Shu.
Thanks for the introduction, Larry. That's really kind words that I know I sent to you, so thank you for reading them verbatim. And thanks for the opportunity to participate in the user conference. This is my first time here, and I'm so grateful to be able to tell this story to this group here. So like Larry said, I'm Steve Shu. I've been with CA for 8 years now, and I've been managing the P&C business for the last 2. How to use this thing. So a bit about CAA. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with CAA. You know our tow trucks. You might be members, or your parents might be members. But we've also been an insurance company for the last 50 years. When we launched in 1974, the first insured vehicles were a 1973 Ford Pinto and a 1968 Pontiac Laurentian. I don't think either of those vehicles are on the road anymore, but that gives you a sense of how long ago this was. Our policies at the time were written on typewriters, and it would be another 3 years before the Jays would take the field in Exhibition Stadium. So clearly, a lot has changed. And even CA Insurance has changed greatly. When we launched, we were only operating in Ontario, but now we proudly serve Canadians coast to coast in 7 provinces. When we started, we only had the direct channel, but in 2015, we introduced our home and auto products to the broker channel as well. And in spite of all of these changes, we have some constants. And that constant is our commitment to making things better. And so how have we done that? We've developed innovative and customer-centric solutions like CA MyPace for low mileage drivers. Recently, we introduced the Head Start discount for young drivers to help them save on auto insurance in Ontario. But most importantly, it is our commitment to protecting Canadians. That is core to who we are, and is really what drives our organization forward. So a bit about my team. My team's responsible for the acquisition marketing for the direct channel, which operates in Ontario as well as Atlantic. We also support Manitoba, but that's in a different capacity because we're largely promoting the brokerage there. We work very closely with each of the CA clubs, and we've got some folks from CA Niagara here, so nice to see you guys. We work them very closely on executing integrated marketing campaigns, which include mail, mass media, as well as digital tactics. We want to give our direct customers choice so they can engage with us in a number of ways. They can either get a quote online, they can call to speak to a CA Insurance agent, or if they want, they could go to their local CA store and talk to one of our CA Insurance agents there as well. So going back to the digital channel, the direct channel, my apologies, this is what our footprint looks like. We operate in Ontario, and there's 3 clubs there. There's CAA North and East Ontario, which is Ottawa and the surrounding regions. There's CAA Niagara, and there's CAA South Central Ontario, which we are all in at the moment. That's my home club. I'm sure most of you here who are local here who are members, this is your local club as well. Each region, each club has its own members with varying demographics and customer needs. As you can imagine, there's a lot of opportunities, but also complexities, which is why it's so important for us to have a partner that understands our business. So before we get into the what and how, I do want to delve a bit into the why. As marketers, we know that what we do is part art and part science. Oftentimes, we traffic in the subjective, but our partnership with Environics enables us to apply the quantitative to the qualitative. They support us in validating or invalidating the human insights with data-driven insights. And what we so appreciate about working with Environics is that they help us make better decisions, manage our lead volumes, and allow us to test with confidence because we know we have a criteria and a suite of reporting tools to evaluate the results. And there's a fourth reason that's not up there, but I alluded to it a little earlier. We've been working with Environics for 18 years. So another reason why we so enjoy working with them is because Larry and his team, they know us and they know our business. So now let's get into what we actually do with Environics. Simply put, we've developed a framework that optimizes our acquisition efforts and a measurement plan with a suite of reporting tools to track campaign performance, attribution, and overall lift. We currently have 3 mail-based programs. We have a direct mail campaign that goes out to CAA members. We have an unaddressed mail campaign that targets key FSAs. And we also have an X-Date campaign, which is a direct marketing program that reaches out to customers who have provided us with their auto and home insurance expiry dates. So this is a particularly powerful program because so much of insurance is knowing when the customer is in market. So if we know what your expiry date, we know when to reach out to you. Our focus today will be on the predictive models that Environics has built to support our DM campaigns. Now, before we get into that, I do want to share with the group what we're up against. So if you recall, we operate in Ontario and Atlantic, and we have 4 distinct clubs that we partner with. This means different geographies. So we're dealing with provinces, but even within those provinces, there are regional differences that we need to be mindful as well. There's different membership bases, different membership characteristics, and a lot of data. And I'm not going to go into the fact that each of these provinces has their own insurance regulatory body as well. I'm just going to ignore that. We're going to keep moving forward. We recognized early on that it wasn't enough for us to only drive quotes. We also knew that we needed to consider the purchase behavior. After all, if a consumer completes a quote, but we're not right for them, that's inefficient for us and it impacts our conversion rates as well. Finally, we have 2 products. We have home and auto insurance. But within each of those products, they have their own options and solutions as well that target different segments. All of this to say that we have a multitude of variables and considerations that we need to be mindful of when going into building this predictive model. So a bit of arithmetic, really easy stuff. 4 clubs, 2 products, a quote model, and a conversion model for each product. That's 16 predictive models that Environics has built to help us optimize our direct mail campaigns for each club. Now, a bit about the data. So the models that have been built leverage various data sources. There's a ton of first-party member data that comes from the sister clubs. And obviously, we apply EA's third-party data as well. And to really understand what we're trying to do, the purpose of these models is to predict which CA members have a higher propensity to get a quote and which CA members have a higher propensity to purchase a policy. Both of those are incredibly important. With all of this data available, we worked with Environics to identify the variables that are key drivers in predicting quotes and conversion. Now, some of these characteristics have a positive influence, some have a negative influence, some have both, depending on what the variable is. But you'll see, for instance, member tenure has a positive influence, but it could also have a negative influence, depending on how many years the member has been with us. So here's a couple of examples of how the variables can actually influence each of the models. So we have the auto models, so we have a quote model as well as a conversion model. And when you look at it from the lens of age, you'll see that as we get into the higher age brackets, we see a positive relationship with completing a quote, but also a purchase. This really makes sense because of our risk models and our target audiences. When you look at tenure, though, it's a slightly different story. Tenure has less of an influence on the quote model for property, but it has a significant influence on the conversion model. So what we see here and what we're trying to communicate to this group is that certain variables have different varying levels of influence on each of the models, but when taken together, that's how it becomes truly powerful. So these are the builds. This is the auto quote build, and that's the auto conversion model. So the first thing to notice is that the models are working as expected. Your top decile is at 1.63x, all the way to the 10th decile, which is at 0.58x. But what's interesting is look at the inverse relationship between quote and conversion. So if we only had a model that drove quotes, we'd do a fairly good job. We're getting a lot of quotes from those top deciles. But when you take a look at the conversion rate, they're working against each other. Now, some of this might have to do with anti-selection. So folks who are highly motivated to get a quote might also be higher risk, which is why they are actively shopping to get a quote. So that kind of addresses some of that nuance there. And we see the same trend for the property quote and conversion model as well. And what this really indicates to us is that even though we are able to identify members who are likely to quote, we need to also ensure that we're targeting members that have a high propensity to buy. And that's why EA has built both a quote model and a conversion model and integrated them into a single solution. This dual model approach is designed to help us identify those most likely to get a quote and to purchase. For our direct mail campaigns, we only mail to those groups on the left. So it's the high propensity to quote and high propensity to purchase. And the other group there in the blue, that's a lower propensity to quote, but a higher propensity to purchase. You also see that in the top right, there is a high propensity to quote, but that group has a lower propensity to purchase. So we really only engage that group if we're behind or we're trying to play some catch up. Luckily for us, we're generally dealing with the left quadrants for the most part. So as expected, the high quote, high sale group had the best overall results. Better response rate for quotes, really high, healthy conversion rate. The other group that we've talked about is the high quote, low sale group. Now, they're quoting at a healthy level, but the conversion rate's lower. So it's less efficient for us. And finally, the low quote, high sale group. We know these folks may have a lower propensity to quote, but if they do get a quote, they have a higher propensity to purchase. And you see that bear out here as well, where their conversion rate is actually even higher than the high sell. But what this teaches us, by having these insights available, it allows us to start brainstorming what are different things that we can test and do. For instance, right off the bat, that group there, that low quote, high sale, could we test running an incentive to encourage the quotes because we know that group, if they get a quote, they're likely to purchase. And what this identifies is that by having this dual model approach, it allows us not only to predict outcomes, but to brainstorm and make better decisions. So now that we've talked a bit about the predictive models, I want to shift our focus to reporting, because without the reporting, we're still left in the dark. Environics has developed automated dashboards that provide us with ongoing results by various cells by club. So whenever we're running tests, this is the dashboard that we would go to, because we would take a look at all the test cells and see how they're performing against control. And we've done numerous tests and experiments, whether we're talking about creative positioning or offers or even audiences. We really rely on dashboards like this to give a snapshot of how the tests are performing against control. You'll also notice there on the left-hand side, we have a holdback group. So these are folks that we do not engage with at all. We don't mail to them at all, and their sole purpose is to be the proof of concept, the what happens if we do nothing. They are our sanity check to confirm to us that the work that we're doing, that our marketing team doing, is driving incremental results. And we also have another dashboard where we can review results by club. So this allows us to identify and investigate if any of the clubs are demonstrating an outlier performance. It allows us to dig in. It allows us to reach out to the clubs and see if anything was done differently or if there's anything that they see on their end that we should be mindful of. And it's really these dashboards and these reporting that allow us to keep a pulse check on how our campaigns are performing, and to have those really constructive conversations, not only with our partners, but with Environics. And any learnings that we get, we apply to future campaigns. Okay, so I understand that lunch is around the corner and that there's a lot going on there, so no expectation for everybody to digest all that. It's merely there to demonstrate and to capture the complexity of attribution and reporting. So I will do my best to summarize this in 3 points. And my EA friends, if I'm wrong, just shake your head and I'll stop. To start, the attribution rules need to be very specific. Secondly, we need to follow the rules and make sure that we're doing so consistently. You change the rules, you change everything else. And finally, our attribution window for our direct mail campaigns is open for 12 weeks after the final mail drop. The reason being that a quote is valid for 90 days. So if you got a quote because of a campaign, it's valid for 90 days. We want to make sure if you bind that we track that back to us, and I will personally take credit for each one of those. So to sum up, we've been using these propensity models for 6 years now. And over time, we've seen an improvement in our conversion rate as well as our response rate. This model makes us more effective and more efficient so that we can shift our focus or our media or our buys to something else. The framework that's been developed by the Environics team allows us to test and learn with confidence. And most importantly, the collaboration with Environics, with Larry's team, has created a strong foundation for us to build upon to ensure that marketing can continue to evolve with the needs of the business. Thank you.